Atheist Ireland is an advocacy group, and we have two aspects to our work. The first part of our work is that we promote atheism and reason over superstition and supernaturalism. When doing this, we engage with the general public, and we disagree with and we debate with religious people of all religions, and we argue that faith is an unreliable way of understanding what is true about reality, and that faith corrupts our understanding of morality. The second part of our work is that we promote ethical secularism by seeking separation of church and state. And when we're involved in that part of our work, we are happy to work alongside religious people who also support separation of church and state. In our constitution, in our parliament, in our laws, in our schools and in our hospitals. We have an alliance in Ireland with the Evangelical Alliance of Ireland and the Ahmadiyya Muslim community of Ireland, who are a minority Muslim community that are persecuted and murdered by Sunnis in Pakistan and elsewhere, as three groups who recognise that we have very different views about reality and about religion, but who support the human right of freedom of religion and belief and support the separation of religion and state. I'm going to talk today about that second part of our work, which is promoting separation of church and state and using human rights as the basis of that campaign. I'll give you a brief history of religious discrimination in Ireland. When Ireland was partitioned a century ago, we ended up with two sectarian states on the island of Ireland. Northern Ireland was a sectarian Protestant state that discriminated against Catholics. The Republic of Ireland was a sectarian Catholic state that discriminated against Protestants. And both states discriminated against other minority religions and against atheists. The 1937 Irish Constitution begins by saying that all authority comes from the Holy Trinity. And it goes on to say that the state acknowledges that the homage of public worship is due to Almighty God. Now, if you think about that for a second, that's not even putting into the Constitution the right of people to worship a God. That's putting into the Constitution the right of the God to be worshipped by the people, as if the creator of the universe, if it existed, required the Irish Constitution to uphold its rights. It includes obligatory references or religious oaths for president, judges and the Prime Minister, and it includes a constitutional offence of blasphemy. In many ways it's quite like David outlined in terms of the Canadian Constitution. From early in the Irish state's history, the Catholic Church took control of most of our schools and our hospitals, and even today 90% of our state-funded primary schools are run by the Catholic Church, paid for by the state, but run by the Catholic Church, and they have exemptions from our equality laws that allow them to discriminate on the grounds of religion against students, against parents, and against teachers. In 1983, we added a clause to our Constitution based on a Catholic campaign that made abortion not only illegal but unconstitutional in almost all circumstances. In 1992, we had what became known as the X case, where the state took out an injunction against a 14-year-old raped teenager to prevent her from travelling to England to have an abortion. In 2012, Savita Halappanavar, a pregnant woman, died in an Irish hospital after being refused an abortion. And her husband was told that the reason she didn't have an abortion was because this is a Catholic country. In recent decades, we have had the most serious manifestation of how religion has poisoned Irish politics and society, when it was finally exposed, as in many other countries, that for generations, while all of the things I'm talking about had been happening, that Catholic priests had been raping and abusing children, and the Catholic Church, both in Ireland and through the Vatican, had been covering up that abuse by shifting priests from parish to parish and hiding behind Vatican immunity. Not only that, but the state refused to properly investigate those crimes. So that's the context in which 10 years ago Atheist Ireland was founded. And our first task was very simple and very basic. It was simply to normalise the use of the words atheism and secularism, which up to then had usually been used as an insult in Ireland. And we have far exceeded that target. We now feature regularly in the Irish media. We lobby and brief politicians. We have addressed parliamentary committees and constitutional conventions. We are the first atheist group in the history of Ireland to have officially met with the Irish Prime Minister. We base our campaigns for secularism on fundamental human rights, such as freedom of religion and belief, freedom from discrimination, equality before the law, the right to an effective remedy. And we work alongside other human rights groups, both in Ireland and internationally, when doing that. We believe that internationally agreed human rights are the best foundation upon which to build other secular policies. Because human rights are not lofty aspirations. Human rights are the rock bottom minimum that we should expect to have without having to campaign for them. So in doing this, we briefed the United Nations, the Council of Europe, the European Union, the OSCE on human rights abuses in Ireland and internationally. This year, we also briefed the United Nations Human Rights Committee when it was questioning Pakistan on Pakistan's human rights abuses. And we brought over a joint delegation from Atheist Ireland, the Evangelical Alliance of Ireland, and the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community of Ireland to speak collectively on behalf of our respective belief communities in Pakistan who are persecuted and murdered but cannot speak out themselves for obvious reasons, so we went there to speak out on their behalf. In terms of specific issues, Atheist Ireland works to end religious discrimination in civil marriages, religious oaths for high office, and the Irish Blasphemy Law, which Islamic states have used at the United Nations to endorse their own by saying, here's a Western state with a blasphemy law, what's wrong with ours? And when Pakistan is citing your country as best practice for blasphemy laws, you know that you're doing something wrong. After years of robust lobbying, the government seems to be finally addressing some of our issues. It has accepted that the blasphemy law should go, but it hasn't held the referendum that is necessary to do so. It is starting to address religious discrimination in schools, but it is doing so at the slowest possible pace that it can get away with. But we are continuing to campaign, particularly in schools, for 4 issues that we see as equally important: patronage, access, curriculum and teaching. All 4 of those issues have to be addressed to get a secular education system. We're currently working on a book that we'll be publishing in the next few weeks about freedom of religion and belief for children, so that we can give something to parents who are opting their children out of formal Catholic religious instruction classes that will teach them about how to identify what is true rather than telling them what it is that is true. We were part of the campaign in Ireland to successfully legalise gay marriage. We were the first country, indeed, to legalise marriage by a vote of the people rather than by a change in the law or by Parliament. We're also part of a coalition that's currently very strongly campaigning for a referendum to repeal our constitutional ban on abortion, and we're hopeful that we will have a referendum on that next year. So Ireland, it's important to realise that while Ireland still looks like a Catholic country in terms of its laws, Ireland is no longer a Catholic country. Ireland is now a pluralist country, but with Catholic laws. The Catholic Church no longer controls the people, but it still has laws in place from when it did control the people. And those are the things that we have to change. We have to get the state and the laws and the Parliament to catch up with the people. The most recent census shows that 1 in 10 Irish people say they have no religion. That's more than all of the minority non-Catholic religions put together. And the figure we think is actually far, far higher than that, because people tick Catholic for cultural reasons rather than for religious reasons. If you look at the attendance at Mass, it is considerably lower. So progress might seem slow, but I'm quite optimistic. We're living in an age where we don't know when political change will happen, but we can see all around us that when that change does happen, it can happen very quickly, very suddenly, and very fundamentally. In our lifetime, we have seen the fall of the Berlin Wall, we have seen the end of apartheid in South Africa, we have seen the end of the Soviet Union, we've seen the end of the IRA campaign in Ireland. We have seen, most recently on a less positive note, things like Brexit and the election of Donald Trump in America. We're living through an age where incredibly fundamental change can happen incredibly quickly. And I don't know what will happen that will eventually trigger separation of church and state in Ireland, but I'm confident that that is the direction that we're moving in. And when it does happen, I believe it will happen very quickly. And I believe that when that does happen, all of the work that we have been doing on putting in place policies for ethical secularism will then become retrospectively useful. And in the meantime, we in Atheist Ireland will continue to work patiently and strongly to promote atheism, reason and ethical secularism, both in Ireland and with you, our friends and colleagues around the world internationally. Thank you very much.